Hi, everyone. All right, let's get started. Welcome to the Database Scalability Working Group, Monday, May 2nd. Significant updates since the last meeting. So I have a few items here. Phase 4 rollout was completed at 100% last Thursday. There were some issues with database saturation, pool size configurations, but we ultimately collaborated with SREs across time zones on a roll forward approach that helped us address any issues quickly. We haven't seen any saturation issues since the last config updates last Thursday. Just linked to a phase 4 retro issue. I tried to ping people who were involved, but yeah, anyone else who's not on there, please feel free to take a look and chime in. We're just looking to reflect back on the last couple phase rollout phases and hopefully take any learnings from these last couple of phases into the final phase 7 rollout. Next up are phase 5 and 6 kind of happening at the same time, essentially developing and I guess aligning on the failover plan, doing test runs and staging and making sure that we define any DR scenarios and rollback plans. So these conversations have already been in progress, but I guess we can all expect to just see more of a focus on making sure that these move forward and hopefully in time for our estimated rollout time frame of mid-June. Here I linked to a note today in the issue about provisioning the database layer for the testing environment. Looks like we're pretty close, but the SRE who had been working on that with Jose is taking some time off. So there's a call for help in there to get someone else focused on it. And there was also a little bit of chat in Slack. Looks like SRE managers are talking about it and should have an update for us by Wednesday of who can help out there. Camille, do you want to verbalize what you were typing in the item above there?
Which item?
Either one. I guess I skipped over the one that you were just commenting on.
So we continue working on the from the development on the migration stuff. Like migration is done except like on finalizing some background migration. It's not yet tested because like we actually gonna be running that in the production once we like run that on staging, but it's not really like at the risk of delaying the phase 6 or 7 in the production. So the next item, we've been talking about like what we actually need from the testing environment, and we kind of concluded that we might use actually a lot of the rollout of the upcoming PG upgrade, which seems to be happening at the same time. It's been a proven method already with like a lot of steps actually pretty well tested. Our rollout is actually pretty significantly simpler because from the things that we kind of discussed, we actually need probably to change 3 aspects in total of the Postgres and PG bouncer, not really touching application maybe except stopping and restarting that. But this is something that we are discussing right now, whether we want to try to do an online approach with like minimal downtime, or whether we kind of want to use the PG upgrade procedure and do like the approach with the downtime. It seems to be tempting, the PG upgrade, because it's already there. And as of that, from the things that we discussed, since this upgrade is really like a database centric, we very little like change to the application itself. From the testing, we need actually like the database structure as close as possible to the production. with some form of the application running. I mean, it can be like a single node that we can really touch and see like how application will behave once we start executing disaster recovery scenarios, because the main reason of this exercise for testing is like to test disaster recovery scenarios before we kind of execute a happy path on staging. So this is, I think, what we kind of learned, what we need from the testing as of now. And of course, like we probably want to run QA tests on this testing. So like a single node is good enough, or some kind of performance testing to see like if everything is like working properly as for the application goes.
Yeah, if I'm understanding correctly, that should be the environment where we're trying to provision the database layer in the testing environment. Is that right? Is that the environment you're referring to?
Yes, like we mostly need like a database architecture really to test all of these fallback failover scenarios with some sort of the application running. But it's really like we don't need like all staging Kubernetes nodes configured. We are just fine like probably with a single node, because from the current rollout, it seems that we're not gonna be touching application at all, except maybe stopping, or maybe not even touching it at all completely, depending on the scenario. We're rather gonna be changing configuration of the database for the CI. So like as for the rollout, it seems like quite similar to like PG upgrade. Is just the steps gonna be significantly shorter and significantly simpler, because probably it's gonna be, I don't know, reload of the PG bouncer config after we write a new one, maybe execution of some SQL commands on the primary to disconnect, cascade replication, or something of that sort. So they're not gonna be as intrusive as PG upgrade. And like we really want to avoid changing too many things. So we really think about as minimal amount of steps to not really touch application if it's not really needed. So this is really what we need. Like we need some kind of application running to really test that it works. But we don't need like the Chef, Kubernetes, and Cloud Native to test if we can reconfigure, because we really try to avoid it at all costs, simply at this point.
Yeah, my understanding of how we were going to approach that was once that database layer was configured, we would essentially try to spin up something with get for the application, and then just point that to what we had set up for the database. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, what we're doing is taking, sorry, Camille. What we're doing is the same way we do DB benchmarking. We spin up these things from clones from production, and then, as far as I understood, we were going to take one of the reference architectures and point it to that database. So it should be fairly straightforward.
We already have a 50K environment built for this purpose. We might be able to repurpose that one and point to a new cluster if we need to do so.
Which environment was that?
A 50K sharding environment that was set up for this purpose.
Yeah, the problem is because we're using production data, we have very specific requirements for the environments. There is much tighter access control. So the DB benchmarking environment there's only access for very few people. And so we're limited by that. So I know we're standing up another environment to test this, which is getting a feed from production, and then we'll instantiate an instance and point it to that database. So that is a real sort of the thing that's the long pole is making sure that we're crossing all the I's, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's for making sure that that production copy is not, fleeing out into the wild. So.
Yeah, and my understanding is that we're pretty close on the database part of that, right? We're just trying to figure out some issues with monitoring. Yeah,
the procedure is we do this all the time in database benchmarking, but obviously we don't have all the monitoring because mostly we're testing database specific things. So yes, they're standing up the monitoring environment in the separate environment to be able to gather whatever data we need. So.
Cool. Any other comments, questions? All right. Yeah, and then just the update from ops. I'm actually going to remove this section now. Pretty much everything there's done. We were asking for some clarification if we needed, if this larger redesign of how CI-owned runners works might be a blocker for decomposition, but it is not. And yeah, it looks like Camille, you've confirmed that as well. Thank you. Let's see, going on to reviewing rollout progress, no confidence level or ETA changes for this week. We're still 50% confidence for mid-June. And the next item is pretty much a repeat of what I was talking about above. This is a comment from Gregors about why we don't need the larger redesign for CI-owned runners right now. All right, Camille, do you want to verbalize your point or?
Just like as you note, I think runner team probably is like the best suited to that because they look into bigger problem of the runner management. But like this feature, like except CI-owned runners, like it's not the performance, it has also usability problems in the current form. It's pretty messy, like from the perspective of the user to use that. And just as showing like maybe hundreds of runners, it just doesn't scale well. So it shows like the fix that we did, like we fixed that to make it somehow work, but there's a bigger deficiency than that only. So very likely this feature should be like rethought what we want, how we want people to use that effectively. Because once we do that, the performance deficiency will also be gone.
Got it. Thank you. And yeah, just looking at the progress charts, we closed out a couple more issues. A lot of the remaining issues are related to these next couple of phases, testing the rollout and various scenarios, and then some kind of follow-up work that's in progress, like feature flag rollout for the CI namespace mirrors work and some things like that. So I think even though it's kind of getting to that plateau, it's I think we're still on track. It's most of these remaining issues are in progress or on track to be done within the time frame that we're estimating. Going on to risks, Camille.
I learned about this PG upgrade today. On one hand, it's great because there is like a lot of overlap with the downtime approach if you would want to execute that, and a lot of scripting around that. But there is also like, I guess, like the grace period windows, conflicts, and to some extent the same people helping us to execute this rollout. And this, I think, like it's related to staging and also production. So I guess this is maybe like right now, like the biggest of the factors as for the confidence for the time when we're gonna deploy that, because we need enough attention for that rollout. We are pretty confident in the solution, so like we don't anticipate anything going wrong, but we need to also like properly test that ahead of the time. So we kind of, to some extent, fighting for the same resources with the PG upgrades. But on the other hand, we are kind of gonna be probably using a lot of PG upgrade knowledge as for the process execution, because like to major extent, it's gonna be pretty similar. So this is my comment. Gary.
Yeah, because these things involve downtime, we have commitments for customers and end users to pre-announce this with enough notice. So we should be able to make sure that these things are nowhere near each other. And just in case anybody ever says, oh, we might be able to do these two things at the same time, the answer is no. These are very serious. This is very serious surgery, so we'll keep them separate. But we have to plan way in advance, so we'll make sure they do not overlap in any way. And yes, we should be able to reuse or leverage some of the tooling that's going into the PE upgrade to help out with this migration.
Yeah, thanks for that. That did come up. We have a weekly decomposition stakeholders meeting on Wednesdays, and that did come up, I think, start coming up a week or two ago. So it's something where we have as a regular update item there as well, just to kind of check in on the timing of both of those, and we can make sure that those updates are also brought up here.
Yeah, actually, since that's already being discussed, we should probably predetermine which one takes precedence. Right. If we need to make a decision of what goes first, then let's make it. We can already make that choice. I think functional decomposition is more important because the upgrade is something we're gonna redo over and over again once a year. We're already committed to that. So I think it's probably easier to move the upgrade up and down than to tinker with functional decomposition. But you as managers should probably make that decision and say, we'll make a decision on functional, and then we'll make a decision on the upgrade.
Maybe you can somehow estimate the impact, or like what's gonna give us more headroom by that, because I think in the end it's like the more headroom we have, it's actually like the better for the next step. Or like from the other perspective, it's like if we now gonna have two databases, will PG upgrade gonna be harder significantly from the perspective of your team?
No, because it's the same process against both databases, and because we have developed the tooling to be able to do this regularly. So we're committed to product that we will do a major Postgres upgrade once a year. So the focus for this year's upgrade has been on make this reusable. Unlike the last two bigger large upgrades that we've done, where we just worked on that one thing because we hadn't done this before. So I don't think it matters, to be honest. The upgrade is actually, it's the same exact process against both databases. So order of execution is not super important, because we're gonna have to do it. We're gonna have to do the upgrade either before or after. So
like in case of the upgrade, we're gonna actually like do main first and then CI second, or will you gonna do like both of this at the same time? What's gonna be the process?
So I don't know, because I haven't been working on that. Jose or Marcel would know. If we do it before, then both clusters get done essentially one right after the other. If we do it after, then we could run different versions for a while, but operationally then we would have to get another maintenance window to do the second cluster. So the way the upgrade is being prepared is both clusters get done serially, but in the same window.
Okay, I'm asking because technically everything should work with different versions, but also application checks for different versions at different times. So it may require some actual investigation if us running different versions could cause problems for the application.
We would not want to do that anyway.
Though if we would do like with the like different times.
In fact, before the upgrade, before functional decomposition is done, those clusters are joined. So we will have to do both of them at the same time, no matter what. After functional decomposition is done, we have some flexibility, but it's not a best practice for us to be running clusters that are tightly coupled to an application in different versions of Postgres. So we would want to avoid that. At the end of the day, again, I think functional decomposition has higher preference than the upgrade. I would do it first. Because, you've been developing against Postgres 12, the behavior on Postgres 12. So it would be better for us to see the behavior of functional decomposition on where we've been developing, and then do the upgrade later.
it makes sense to me, as like I think from the performance point of view and the headroom taken, and also like probably slightly easier steps initially than PG upgrade.
Headroom wise, 13 is going to give us a little bit better performance, maybe 5–10%. So it's not going to be like, oh, it's not like when we did 12 where it was like 20% and we really wanted 12. And because functional decomposition itself is just giving us very significant headroom, then
yes, like from the things that like we like observe after phase 4, it seems that like we gonna CI gonna like remove about 30% or something like 40, something between 30 to 40% from the main PG host.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have significantly more CPU headroom and like significantly more headroom for the new connections if we want to add more parallel hosts. This is what we are kind of seeing right now after phase 4. And this is like excluding all the storage and the vacuuming chances that will simply come later. This is just looking at the pure, I guess, like connection usage that's gonna be redirected to CI.
Right.
Great. All right. Thanks for the discussion. And yeah, any other questions, comments on that point? Cool. The last item here, yeah, talked about this a little bit last week, but just wanting to clarify some of the exit criteria as we kind of get towards the end of decomposition here, and trying to figure out if what else there might be to do in the working group, and more just for me as well as I've taken over as facilitator, just to understand what's been done and what exactly we're looking for in the exit criteria for the working group. I think we had some pretty high level goals, but I also wanted to make sure that we were very clearly defining that exit criteria and figuring out like, are those high level goals things that we actually want to complete before we exit the working group? Or are we just trying to make sure that we're on good footing to move forward? And I think Fabian also suggested that we keep the working group going until we finish decomposition, but then consider after that, maybe if we want to roll this into discussion about pods or whatever those next steps might be. So I've started a draft MR to try to clarify these. Didn't get as much of a chance as I wanted to work on it. So my plan is to go back, kind of take a look at some of the work that's already been done on blueprints and ideas, and then make sure that we're also reflecting the progress that has been done, as well as what's remaining. So yeah, any feedback on that would be great, and I'll ping folks and remind everyone about it next week. All right, that brings us to the end of the agenda. Anything else? Okay, thanks everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, Nick.